Good evening and thank you for joining us here on the Game of Two Halves podcast, powered by the Geelong Region Soccer Show. It's Season 5, Episode 108, and I'm your host, Tonchi Prusak, for yet another Monday night look at all the football action that's happened over the weekend. But tonight, we've had a very volatile day, getting players off, getting guests off the substitutes bench, being substituted. It's happening. It's going crazy today. But we finally got what we believe is going to be a match-winning combination. Unfortunately, the high-profile interview that we were going to have all the way from Croatia with former North Geelong Warriors star teen Noah Skorko is not happening, unfortunately. His club Hajduk Split just put a little bit of a stop to it, and get it. I understand you're dealing with professional clubs here and it has to probably go through certain channels. But nonetheless, maybe, hopefully, fingers crossed, possibly down the track, we might be able to get young Noah on, who would have more than an important message for a lot of young players who this weekend are going to be taking part in the Victorian Junior Country Championships up in Ballarat. Last night, we had the presentation of the Guernseys and the kits to all the representative players. Over 100 boys and girls from under 11 all the way up to under 18 will be taking part in this weekend's huge tournament in Ballarat. The numbers are astronomical. It's obviously one of the biggest tournaments in recent years, particularly after the pandemic. And to talk about that, we were going to have Simon Wrench, who is the the Geelong Country Rep squad director. Unfortunately, he's fallen ill at the last minute and will not be able to come on board. But we've got some great high-profile guests coming off the substitutes bench today. So we'll be talking to Ray Wood, the director of Euro Football Star, and there's been a little bit of a issue there, so he won't be joining us last minute. But JOSIP ZILIC will be coming to us live all the way from Istanbul in Turkey. He is the operations manager of Euro Football Star, based in Geelong, and he's very, very well known around Geelong football circles. He's got a lot of handy tips, a lot of advice for up-and-coming youngsters that are looking to make it to Europe. And Euro Football Star is one vehicle that is the ideal opportunity for a lot of kids around the Geelong area who are looking to make it big, who are looking to make it in Europe. Well, we'll be talking to JOSIP all the way from Istanbul, Turkey, ahead of the UEFA Champions League blockbuster between Manchester City and Inter Milan this Saturday night. That's the global game. And then, folks, after that, it's the local game segment of tonight's show. We'll be speaking to Mike McKINSTRY. He's the chairman of the Geelong Region Football Committee, and they are, I guess, the overseeing body of the country rep squad. So he's more than able substitute for Simon Wrench tonight. But we'll also be speaking with arguably the highest profile female coach in the Geelong region. She's a full-time coach with Football Stars Academy, and she's also the coach of the Under-12 Girls Geelong Country Championships rep team. EMILY SUTCLIFFE will also be joining us a little bit later on. She was one of 3 keynote speakers at yesterday's presentation at the Katsumata Centre at Kardinia Park. So as you can see, folks, we've got a massive, massive show lined up for you tonight. It's going to be huge. We're going to take a little bit of a break. When we return, we'll be going live to Istanbul, Turkey, absolutely live. I kid you not. And we'll be talking with JOSIP ZILIC, who's the operations manager, Geelong-based, of course, for Euro Football Star. Folks, don't go away. A action-packed show coming up a little bit later on. And by the way, I forgot to tell you also, we'll be doing a full roundup of all the games that were held, the senior games over the weekend. We've got some live and we've got some exclusive footage of the Geelong Rangers North Geelong Women's State League 1 clash that was held at Elcho Park yesterday, including some post-match interviews with 2 of the players that took part in yesterday's game. You don't want to miss that either. It's the Game of Two Halves podcast. It is my absolute pleasure to welcome to the microphone an old colleague of mine and someone we know very, very well around Geelong. He's the operations manager of Euro Football Star, JOSIP ZILIC, coming all the way live from Istanbul, Turkey, and there's a very good reason for it. Good afternoon, or good morning, JOSIP, to you.
Oh, yes, we've hit over the afternoon, Mark, and thanks for having me on the show, Tonchi, and good evening to all the listeners and viewers out there.
Yeah. Now, you're over in Istanbul, Turkey with Ray Wood, and Ray's had an urgent meeting with someone else, so he's unable to attend. But we'll talk about the reasons you guys are there for in the first case. But before we do that, tell us your first impressions of Istanbul. We can hear the wailing or the singing, something in the background. Maybe with your midday prayer or something.
It's the midday prayers here at the mosque, the Chelim Mosque behind me. We're in Taksim Square. Taksim means division between the north and the south. And similarly to Geelong, the region itself, we have the north of the river and the south of the river. So maybe we can take some similarities out of Istanbul ourselves, which is divided by the Bosphorus River.
Yeah. Now, JOSIP, we're talking about, well, today's, I guess, a special episode. We're looking at the Victorian Country Championships, the Junior Country Championships. And several years ago, that was resuscitated, I guess, if you like, brought back to allow a lot of allow a lot of kids to be able to represent Geelong. Particularly those that don't normally get a chance at NPL level. But either way, it's a wonderful opportunity for a lot of kids where they start to really consider taking their football seriously and taking it to another level. And Euro Football Star is precisely that type of organisation that has been set up to take kids' football to another level, isn't it?
Yes, definitely, Quincy. Sort of my happiest days, I'd say, in coaching land would always be, I always refer back to the opportunities I had to teach SAP or roll out SAP in the regions and working with regional clubs to get that skill acquisition out. Unfortunately, as a formal program, it doesn't exist anymore, but thankfully, the country champs to come in and it offers that opportunity to start the process in those 10 to 11-year-old players who are looking just to sort of step up and see if they can test themselves just a little bit further. And running in synergy with that, if you look at Euro Football Star, it has its foundational model similarly to SAP, where there's foundational skills that are emphasised about getting those things right and get that base really solid so that you can keep building on that towards whatever it is you want to enjoy in the world of football.
Now, Josip, as you said, you used to run the SAP program in Geelong for a long, long time, school acquisition phase. Let's talk a bit about that. Let's talk about the fundamentals of that SAP phase and the age group that it's aimed at. And what are the key, I guess, components of that phase for young footballers?
Oh, look, first, I think the first thing that comes to mind for every player is first touch. Getting that ball to come into you, receiving it, and how you deal with it, whether you want to take it as a negative or a positive touch, and what you do with it after that. Coming into play, you got your 1v1 after that, skilling up, defending or attacking with the 1v1s, changes of direction, feints, moves of the body. You have your striking the ball, how well you can hit it hard, under hitting and not over hitting it, and all those sorts of attributes being focused on by the coach and trying to hone in the skills to get the distances right when you're hitting the ball. And of course, after striking the ball, we can't go past, I've got the last one there. It's just got my mind, I'm trying to think on the run. And then striking the ball as well. I started striking the ball, but sorry, I'm lost for words.
Shooting.
Shooting, yes. A little bit of action going on around me. It's a bit of distraction, sorry.
Oh, absolutely. Now, talking of distractions, before we do get into that, I've just now had a thing in my mind. We noticed Ray putting a lot of stuff on his social media channels, as well as yourself, Josip. Your first impressions of getting to Turkey, to Istanbul, and there was a big Turkish football game happening between Galatasaray the other day. So walk us through that. We haven't got any footage of that, but it's a shame. But it was very, very colourful, to say the least.
I sent a few videos up so people can get onto my social media. They can have a look, and onto Euro Football Stars. You'll see it there as well. It took us by surprise. I don't think we really, because we were so focused on the Champions League, we didn't really think about one more round left in the Turkish Super League. And the moment we entered into Taksim Square, we noticed a bit of noise and a bit of banter going on, a bit of colour. And what turned out to be a dozen, maybe 20 red and yellow tops turned into about, I don't know, 2,500, 3,000 red and yellow tops in an instant. Yeah. And you go past it, there's a Galatasaray store that's sort of opposite the Nike store. And all of a sudden, they all congregated there and they were singing their club songs and getting the fans revved up before they marched on over to the highway and picked up buses and cars and headed over to the stadium, which is about 7 or 8 kilometres due east from Istanbul itself. The funny thing is, after all that fanfare and the flares and whatnot, I was off to pick up Benji from the airport. Benji arrived from Manchester to meet me here. And the whole trip was delayed by about 45 minutes to get to the airport because the fans got out in the middle of the highway, lighting flares all over the place. I had a flashback to my teenage years back in the old Melbourne Knights days, but don't tell anyone I was in those groups of people.
Now the reason, obviously, the reason you guys, Euro Football Star, is in Istanbul is because of the Champions League, the UEFA Champions League this Saturday night. Big game between Manchester City and obviously Inter Milan. Manchester City looking to make it a treble, an incredible treble if they can do it. But obviously Inter Milan trying to return some of the glory days to Italian football. Have the fans started arriving, and what is the atmosphere expected to be like in Istanbul over the next few days?
Well, they're starting to trickle in. They're starting to trickle in today. We noticed them. According to when you speak to hospitality people around, they're anticipating Wednesday to be the pivot point when they really start to pour in, leading into the Saturday final, Saturday night over here. Locally, they're very receptive to the occasion. And if yesterday's colour and fanfare is anything to go by, we're in for an exciting weekend. On Thursday, the fan parks open up, so we're going to go down there. They're going to have a Turkish Legends versus Champions League Legends 7-a-side match down by the Bosphorus River. So we'll go and partake in that and see what we can catch there. But it's definitely building up, and we'll over those 2 or 3 days at the fan parks, there'll be a lot of excitement being built. There's concerts there too, also fundraising for the disastrous earthquakes that occurred in Turkey maybe just a couple of months ago. So be mindful of that, and we'll obviously help contribute towards that fundraising as well.
Yeah. Now we've talked about this year, and a big shout out to Euro Football Star and to Ray. One of the reasons, one of the elements of the major sponsorship of Euro Football Star of the Geelong Region Soccer Show, and hence the change of name to the Game of Two Halves, is bringing that world element to the local game, and I guess this is one example of the local game being taken internationally with yourself in Istanbul, Turkey, ahead of the UEFA Champions League. And this is part of the global game. So, folks, you are listening to the global game segment, but we've got the local game a little bit later on. But one of my fondest memories of how small the world really is and how football is able to bring everyone together was the 2006 World Cup in Germany, when I think it was in Kaiserslautern, after the game between Australia and Japan. There I am on the train station, and I ran into half a dozen of football fans from Geelong. You expecting to run into any of the Geelong football fans whilst you're there in Istanbul, Turkey, Josip?
Oh, the only one is my son, who I picked up last night. So I'm not anticipating anybody else from Geelong, but if I do, they'll be warmly received by me.
Just a word of warning. Just a word of warning. Be on the lookout for these two mugs, Michael Opperman and Rod van der Scheijs. They have.
Are they I know where I'm going to find them too. There's an Irish pub just down the road down there.
Just a sneaky trip to Istanbul to watch the Champions League final, pre-flight drinks and food before boarding. Hopefully we can make it back in one piece. Michael Opperman, whose son Ryan Opperman is the captain of North Geelong Warriors, and Rod van der Scheijs, a coach at Geelong Rangers of the boys under 15. Well, they're taking a little bit of a mid-season hiatus and coming your way. So watch out! The crazy duo are going to be in town. But big shout out to Oppie and to Rod. Hopefully you might run into them there. But it's funny how football can bring people together, and it's really interesting. In your case, you've reunited with your son. And how's he doing over there? We had him on the show a few weeks back, but how's he finding Europe at the moment?
Really good. He's missing home, that's for sure, and he's looking forward to getting home into the Australian climate. But all in all, he's grown a lot. So he's obviously changed for us. We haven't seen him in physical sense for a long time. We're enjoying the feedback he's given us about his development and his journey. So for us, just like at Euro Football Star itself, it's all about the experiences that we can try and provide people. And as a parent, it enabled us to provide an experience for our child to take up something that he's had his dreams and he's hooks into for some time. And we hope that can be a stepping stone for the next things to come. Whether that kicks on into professional life with football on the pitch, or whether it comes into coaching or whatever it might be. It's really just all about enabling people to focus in on some skills and take that to the best of their ability.
Yeah. Now, Josip, we talked about Euro Football Star and the objective testing. We've spoken about that in recent weeks, and it's something that anyone and everyone can do pretty much any time. You just go to the Euro Football Star website, and you can find the examples of the objective testing. But we were saying off air, the objective testing that can serve an even greater purpose than just killing some time or doing something on the weekends
Yeah.
and what you're not. Tell us how in relation to skill set that can be something that can really improve the quality of a young footballer.
Well, I'll start that off with like these sorts of trips that Ray invests into to try and motivate and inspire young athletes to make those steps. This is just sort of like a window of opportunity to display to the people that he works with and mentors along the way about reviewing the way you're working and applying those foundational skills to continually improve. Those elements don't change throughout the life cycle of your professional football career or any football career for that matter. So they will be in place for the entire time you want to kick the ball about. And if you transfer that into coaching and football management, those skills will still be prevalent for you to monitor and execute as well. And if we look at a couple of players that Ray's had a chat to this week on the professional player pathway program, in doing match review analysis, everything comes back to those key objectives in the objective testing. Whether or not someone's doing enough sprints in the match, when they look at the video analysis and see that they've dropped off on their performances, and you can see that maybe the motivation has dropped off, and you can start digging into the psychology about why aren't you making those gut-busting runs anymore. That enables more conversation to try and motivate an athlete. So that's just one little snippet in a window of how that's used to continually refer to and continually improve.
And here's another suggestion for local coaches as well. This time of year, you end up getting a lot of illnesses, particularly kids getting sick. Winter's just arrived. I know from me personally, just on the training track earlier tonight, we had a few absentees, and one of the teams actually had to call it off because they didn't have enough players. But here's an excellent opportunity to, if you haven't got as many players as you'd like or normally have, implement some of these objective testing drills in your training sessions and getting a practical advantage for your kids as well. And speaking of the objective testing, there's one coming up in Victoria very shortly. Is that right?
Yeah, towards the end of June, Ray and the team will be down in Melbourne. They'll be based at around Box Hill, doing the testing out there, and then also holding a presentation for any interested parties in the professional player pathway in Melbourne CBD. There's an auditorium that will be advertised that people can come along and listen to what it's all about.
Excellent. Something to look forward to. Now, it's not all fun and games for you guys up there in Turkey. There is a lot of meetings, a lot of networking, a lot of catching up with potential partners and what you're not.
Yep.
What are some of the meetings that you've had or planning on having that you're able to talk about, of course?
Yes, one is a colleague of Ray's that worked with him at Leicester in the youth program there. He's at the moment at Northampton, and he's obviously working on his professional career and where it's going to take him next. But it's great when you see people of the professional coaching background reconnecting with each other because of this big stage that we're on, and having conversations that might open more further doors for young Australians who wish to take those opportunities to dive into in the UK or Europe or wherever it might be.
Yeah, excellent. Josip, we're going to leave you there, but before we do, yourself and Ray will be videotaping and recording lots of live crosses, exclusive content. And what's the best way that people who are interested to find out a little bit more about Euro Football Star and what you guys are doing over there, the exciting things you guys are doing over there, how can they best find out, keep abreast of all of that's going on?
The easiest one that we're all accustomed to these days, Tonchi, is your Insta and Facebook. Get onto Euro Football Star's sites. Otherwise, you get onto www.eurofootballstar.com and you'll see the opportunities there to book yourself in for a testing or a presentation.
And if you'd like more information about what Eurofootball Star is doing, contact Ray Wood by emailing him info@eurofootballstar.com. There's the email address right there at the bottom of your screen. Josip, enjoy the rest of the week. Enjoy the Champions League on final on Saturday. Finally, do you have a tip? Manchester City or Inter Milan?
I think it's time for Man City to finally lift the trophy. 2-0. Goals to Haaland and Gundogan.
There we go, 2-0. Okay. Well, on that
all
note,
the best to the country champs, kids. All the best. Have a great time.
Good stuff. Yeah, absolutely. We'll be talking to MIKE McKINSTRY from the Geelong Region Football Committee very, very shortly about that. And we'll also be talking to EMILY SUTCLIFFE from the Under-12 Girls team. She's the coach there. And that will be in the local game shortly after that. But in the meantime, Josip, thank you for joining us and wishing you all the very best. Take care.
Thanks, Punchy. Thanks, viewers.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
As the first solar tube skylight installer in Victoria, Scotsgo Skylighting has nearly 30 years of experience and offers a variety of services including custom-made skylights, high-quality Velux skylights, and a variety of solar tube daylighting systems. The benefits of having the skylight in your home are many. They let natural light into your space, and with that light comes solar heat, improving your mood and even helping with performance in workplaces. Plus, heating your home with sunlight can save on heating costs during the chilly seasons. Cosmetic changes like skylights can add equity into your home, and similar to adding mirrors on the walls, skylights can make a room feel bigger and more spacious. It's about time you enjoyed all these benefits plus more. So what are you waiting for? To get a free daylight assessment and installation quote, call our founder and owner Adrian Begg on 0409 823 177 or visit our website at www.scotsgoskylights.com.au. Scotsgo Skylighting is proudly Geelong owned and operated.
Welcome back to the Game of Two Halves podcast, powered by the Geelong Region Soccer Show. It is time now for the local game segment, and we're going to kick it off with the news desk happening right now. So there's a lot to get through. But before we look at the results of the weekend's games, let's have a look at what's making the press, the local Geelong Advertiser. There on the right, teen striker red hot, a big feature story about Milton Bailey from Barwon Soccer Club, who is really hitting form. And that was in Saturday's Advertiser. Believe it or not, he scored a goal on Saturday to take his tally to 11 goals for the season. At the bottom of that page, ton of fun for this Drysdale mum. A real feel-good story about Celeste Scott from Drysdale Soccer Club, who took up soccer because of the crazy, soccer mad husband, Andrew. But she took it up 7 weeks after giving birth to her first child, and there's a great little story there, as well as a story on the country champs, and they're ready to shine. So a full page of soccer in the Geelong Advertiser. That was in Saturday's column. In today's Geelong Advertiser, Nugent nabs treble in second half Park Blitz. Nick Nugent scored a hat-trick in the second half after coming on as a second half substitute, and that was after missing through four weeks of football through injury. So what a great comeback story that was. Now the Australia Cup, we're down to the real business end of the competition. The Victorian round 7 fixtures, they kick off tomorrow night. Heidelberg United taking on St Albans Saints, Goulburn Valley Suns at home to Hume City. But for us Geelong fans, the real interest will be next Tuesday, the 13th. Not the Northcote City and Clifton Hill game, not the Melbourne Knights and Yarraville FC game, although I'm sure there's a lot of Melbourne Knights fans here in Geelong. It's the Oakley Cannons hosting our very own Geelong Soccer Club. The David and Goliath battle. Oakley Cannons. Remember, they made it through to the semi-final of the national stage, so that they were one of 4 teams nationwide still standing last year. So it's a huge job, this one. But Geelong Soccer Club, they will be keen to cause a major upset next Tuesday night at Jack Edwards Reserve. So that game will be live streamed. We'll be able to watch that. So good luck to Geelong Soccer Club there. Now, earlier today, Football Victoria released a major announcement for lovers of futsal, and we know there's a lot of them in the Geelong region. They've announced that the inaugural F League and State Futsal Leagues will be commencing later this year in September, and the expression of interests are now open. So in Geelong, I don't think we've got a futsal club per se. We've had a couple of rep squads and what you're not, but here's an opportunity for futsal enthusiasts here in Geelong to maybe get together and launch their own club. The state futsal leagues will be basically under 12 and under 14 and under 16 competitions for juniors, boys and girls. The F League will be a senior men's and senior women's competition. So at the moment, expressions of interest are open. I would love to see one of the clubs. Western United have formed their own futsal club that participates in Series Futsal Victoria. And recently I saw an interview with Chris Palavanis, the Western United CEO, saying that they're looking at branching into women's senior sides, into junior sides as well. Here's an opportunity for a Geelong football club based here in Geelong to become a super club. Let's see if that's going to happen. What are your thoughts? Would you like to see a club from Geelong maybe form its own futsal arm, or would you like to see a futsal club formed that is specifically just for futsal? We want to hear what you're thinking about, and if there is anyone interested in actually taking the initiative and getting something like that started, now's the time to do it. We can't waste any more time. Okay, we're going to now have a quick look at the ladders. But before we do that, we're going to take a very, very short break. When we return, it's time for the results roundup. And then we've got our big guests later on in the program. Mist Air Conditioning and Mechanical Services is one of Geelong's premier domestic air conditioning companies. The company is a venture by the directors of a major commercial mechanical services company which has over 45 years combined experience in the air conditioning sector all over Australia. Our service and vast industry connections will ensure that Mist AC will not only be competitive in price, it will also get you, the client, ongoing service needs for your home or office. With a 7-year guarantee on all our workmanship, you can rest assured you will never be left out in the cold. Whether you are renovating or building your new family home, Mist can provide all types of ducted, split or reverse cycle air conditioning for your environment. We offer a total solution suitable to your family's needs. To find out more, visit our website at www.misthc.com.au or email us at info@misthc.com.au or call us now on 5278 6478. Welcome back to the Game of Two Halves podcast, powered by the Geelong Region Soccer Show. It's time now to have a look at the weekend's results. And by and large, it wasn't a very good good weekend for the senior men's competing in the Melbourne competitions. Out of 10 clubs, 6 losses, 1 draw, and only 3 wins. But let's go from this top there. NPL Victoria, North Geelong suffered a staggering is the word, a disappointing is another word. A very dejecting 0-5 result against Altona Magic at Elcho Park. They're certainly down at the foot of the competition standings. This week they've got a real tough one when they take on Avondale FC away. Avondale are the competition standouts along with South Melbourne. And, the word on the street is that down at North Geelong, they've already started planning for next season, and that would be in NPL2 because the way things are standing, it'll take a minor miracle to survive in NPL Victoria for the Warriors. On to NPL3. Geelong, they came up against Doveton away, courtesy of super sub Ayuba Kenech, who scored in the 72nd minute after coming on in the 63rd minute. It wasn't enough, And unfortunately, Geelong lost to Doveton 2-1. Now, Geelong are in ninth position. They look 3 points away from Box Hill United, who are in the relegation zone. But this week they do come up against Ballarat City, that is Geelong, at home on Saturday night at Stead Park. A must-win game for Geelong. But look, if they can manage to win here, they might be able to move, relatively clear of the relegation zone, that's for sure. Turning our attention now to Men's State League 1 competition. Now, Corio came up against Whittlesea United. A disappointing result on the road. Whittlesea United defeated Corio 4-0. That was a huge loss, a big loss for Corio. But this week they're at home to a side that has been struggling of late, FC Strathmore. And Geelong football fans will be familiar with Strathmore's coach, Mickey Cholina, who did coach North Geelong Warriors for a while. So that game's at Hume Reserve at 3 p.m. Corio, as a result of that loss on the weekend, have slipped back into the relegation zone. And, well, we want them to move away from that relegation zone. So it starts against Strathmore split this Saturday at Hume Reserve. Now, in Men's State League 2 competition, Geelong Rangers, they had a very narrow, but albeit a loss. It doesn't matter if it's 0-1 or it's 0-6. A loss is a loss. And they had a loss to Hume United, 1-0. Now, they're dangerously close to slipping back into the relegation zone at the moment. At the halfway mark of the season, Rangers find themselves in 10th spot, just 1 point ahead of Altona North. Now, this week they're coming up against Clifton Hill, would you believe? Top team Clifton Hill, and it's also going to be away, so that's going to be a really, really tough assignment for the Rangers. Now, in State 4, we had Bell Park return to winning ways in a major way. 5-0. They defeated bottom side Gisborne. Josip Prpic, Jeremy Juricic scored one apiece. All these goals came in the second half, but the standout was, as we mentioned before, Nick Nugent. After an absence of 4 weeks due to injury, he came back into the team. Wasn't in the starting lineup. He was on the bench. But at halftime, Coach Michael Spazewski made a double substitution, brought on Nick Nugent and Josip Prpic. Nick Nugent scored 3 of those 5 goals. So well done to Bell Park. They certainly now skip away from that dreaded relegation zone. Another important result here was Surf Coast defeating Melbourne City 4-0. That was at home. John Pikett scored 2. He scored now, I think, 17 for the season. Christian Mann, close season signing from Bowen, he also got a brace. And because Keilor Wolves were able to defeat Moonee Valley Knights as well, Surf Coast are now edging closer and closer to that second spot. Now, we found out this weekend that the second team will be involved in a promotion playoff. So even though Laverton at the moment are runaway leaders in State 4, the second place team will get an opportunity when they come up against the second place team in the Northern Division for a promotion playoff. Don't you just love promotion relegation battles? Barwon drew 2-2 against Spring Hills. Milton Bailey scored from the penalty spot, his 11th goal of the season, and Harry Kilpatrick also scored for Barwon. Now, this weekend coming, Bell Park taking on Surf Coast at Bell Park Sports Centre. That's going to be a big game, and it's going to be a huge one on Saturday afternoon at 3 p.m. And then after that, 5:15 p.m. at Grovedale Reserve, Barwon taking on Laverton. That should be a really good game, a big game at home. Barwon have done very, very well at home. It's their fortress, and they'll be certainly looking to cause a major upset when they host the competition leaders. Now, in State 5, Lara came up against the might of Balmoral. They put 3 goals past Balmoral, thanks to goals by Lachlan Lazarich. Tristan McGrath scored his 15th goal of the season, and Jordan Nelson also got on the scorer's sheet. Unfortunately, it wasn't enough as the Balmoral machine put 6 goals past Lara United. So 6-3 loss to our boys. They slipped now to 5th spot on the competition standings. The good news here is the top 2 teams get promoted, but also the third team is involved in a promotion playoff against the third last team in State 4. So Lara has got a very, very good chance of finishing, well, second even. They're only 2 points behind West Point. So the other games in State 5 on the weekend, Deakin Ducks and Surfside Waves. It was a local derby. Deakin winning 2-1 courtesy of double by Marcus Lindeberg. Now this week, all of the teams are away. Surfside Waves, in fact, have got a bye. Lara is away to Melton, Phoenix. Deakin Ducks are away to Tarnee. We're going to take a very, very short break now. When we return, like a very, very short break, when we do return, it is going to be, we're going to take a look at the women's competition, the VPLW, and the Women's State League 1 competition, as well as the local Geelong Region 1 competition. Folks, don't go away. We'll be back very shortly.
As the first solar tube skylight installer in Victoria, Scotsco Skylighting has nearly 30 years of experience and offers a variety of services including custom-made skylights, high-quality Velux skylights, and a variety of solar tube daylighting systems. The benefits of having the skylight in your home are many. They let natural light into your space, and with that light comes solar heat, improving your mood and even helping with performance in workplaces. Plus, heating your home with sunlight can save on heating costs during the chilly seasons. Cosmetic changes like skylights can add equity into your home, and similar to adding mirrors on the walls, skylights can make a room feel bigger and more spacious. It's about time you enjoyed all these benefits plus more. So what are you waiting for? To get a free daylight assessment and installation quote, call our founder and owner Adrian Begg on 0409 823 177 or visit our website at www.scotscoskylights.com.au. Scotsco Skylighting is proudly Geelong owned and operated.
Welcome back to the Game of Two Halves podcast, and we're going to now take a look at the women's side of things, the women's competition, and there's some highlights of the North Geelong versus Geelong Rangers Women's State League 1 game that was played yesterday at Elcho Park. But before we get to that, let's also have a look at the VPLW competition. Now, we had in the VPLW, Geelong Galaxy took on Eltham Redbacks, and it was a 9-0 thumping by Galaxy over the Eltham Redbacks. Shian Roselli scored 4 goals. Aya Seno scored 2. Now, she's taken her season's tally to 16 goals. Sumitoku Aya also scored 2, and Lily Dennis scored 1. So a massive win by our girls. Well done to Geelong Galaxy. Last week we had the Galaxy president, Marina Krasikon, and maybe that may have been a bit of good luck that brought the girls, her appearing on our show last week, but a huge win there by Geelong Galaxy. So that was a 9-0 thumping. This weekend, Galaxy taking on Brunswick Juventus, who are a very, very difficult side, a really tough side indeed. But they have lost their last 2 games. So they are only 3 points ahead of Galaxy, and they've got the same amount of goal difference as Geelong Galaxy. So a win on Sunday will see Geelong Galaxy overtake Brunswick Juventus. And as we know, Brunswick Juventus does have a Geelong connection there in Laura Sporanovic, the former Geelong Galaxy player and W League player as well, ex-North Geelong Warriors player as well. So she is now part of the Brunswick Juventus furniture. Now moving along to the State League 1 competition, as we saw North Geelong taking on Geelong Rangers. Well, North Geelong defeated the Geelong Rangers 3-2. Goals by Maya Popplewell, ZOE TIZARD and Bailey Gate for the Warriors. For Geelong Rangers, APRIL Anthony and Felicia Johansson scored for the Rangers. In the other game, Lara United took on Bundoora United, the very, very difficult, very tough, and the runaway competition leaders. Look at that, 7 games, 7 wins, Bundoora United. Izzy Wilkinson scored her 5th goal of the season. It was the only goal that Lara was able to score at the Lara Recreation Reserve. And Bundoora came up with 5 goals in Lara's net. So Lara United, they've moved down to 5th position on the competition standings. North Geelong are 3rd, and Geelong Rangers are in 8th position there. As we can see, the ladder. Now, after the game, I caught up with APRIL Anthony from Geelong Rangers and ZOE TIZARD from North Geelong, and this is what the girls had to say. Okay, we've got April here after the big derby game today. April, how did you see today's game?
Yeah, I think we played really well. We tried our best. They're a good team out there. A couple of little goals that sort of probably shouldn't have gone in, but that's, yeah, I think we did our best. I had a goal at the start, so that was pretty nice, but I guess on to next week. So
yeah, and how are you finding State 1 football?
It's definitely been a big jump since State 3, and I think I think it was a good decision, and I think we're willing to take on that challenge, and I think we're going to be in State 1 next year, and we're ready to give it another hot crack.
Who's the scorer of that third goal? In the end, the match-winning goal for North Geelong. Zoe, how did you see today's game?
Yeah, it was really tough. It was a good competition against the Rangers, and it was nice to see some players that I've played with in the past, and yeah, it was a really tough competition.
Typical derby clash, not much given but in both sides, but in the second half you just pulled out when it mattered most. What was said at half-time to get the girls revved up?
We definitely talked about the things that we did well and the things we needed to improve on, and I think we implemented that really well in the last half of that half, and yeah, we really tried to hold together as a unit and play simple instead of making silly mistakes. Yeah.
Good stuff. And that last goal, that match-winning goal, when you just poked it through, it just spectacularly just soared.
Yeah.
How'd you feel, obviously, after scoring that?
Yeah, it didn't feel real because I was falling and I just kind of just kicked it to try and get it in. So yeah, it was pretty spectacular. I really love how the girls really get around everyone when they score here.
And that was ZOE TIZARD from North Geelong Warriors, who's also a very, very well-established and well-known futsal player. And with the news of the F League and the state leagues for the junior competitions getting underway later this year, there is an opportunity for someone in Geelong to take the bull by the horns and maybe form a futsal club that can represent the city. But we're going to now turn our attention to the local scene football-wise. First of all, to the Geelong Region Women's Competition. On the weekend, we had round 7. It started off on Friday night. Corio Bay came up against Barwon Soccer Club. Barwon easily defeated Corio Bay there at Evans Reserve 6-1. Deakin Ducks Black ran out 3-0 winners over Barwon Heads. Armstrong United did the same over Deakin Ducks Gold, 3-0 win. Surfside Waves inflicted the first loss against Drysdale's first loss, and they really spoilt Celeste Scott's party, her 100th appearance in the black and gold. Surfside Waves won 1-0 there at the Drysdale Sporting Precinct. Bell Park returned to the top of the competition standings after a 7-0 thrashing of Ballerine Sharks. We don't know what the score was of the FC Leopold Surf Coast game, although I do believe Surf Coast did win that. I'm not too sure if it's 2-0 or 2-1. If you do know the score, pop it in the comments section. And last but not least, Geelong defeated Lara United 4-3 in a high-scoring game there at Stead Park. Golden Plains had the bye. The men's competition, all the games were played on Sunday. We had 4 games played. FC Leopold hosted Geelong Rangers at Estuary Reserve. We don't know the score of that game, so if anyone was there at the Estuary Reserve complex in Leopold, please let us know what the score was between FC Leopold and Geelong Rangers. But we do have the scores for the other 3 games. Surf Coast, narrow winners over competition leaders Bell Park, inflicting their first loss of the season. So that was an interesting result. 1-0 win to Surf Coast. So they now draw equal on the same amount of points as Bell Park. We had Breakwater Eagles, 4-1 winners over Barwon Heads. And Barwon Blue and Armstrong United, 3rd and 4th, fought out a 2-all draw. And that brings us to the end of our results roundup. We're going to now bring our first guest on the scene for the local game, and that is Mike McKINSTRY, the chairman of the Geelong Region Football Committee. It's an absolute pleasure to bring Mike onto the show again. Mike, how are you?
Good, Tonchi. How are you, mate?
Fantastic, mate. I think since we last had you on the show, you've got a new camera, you've got some more makeup, lighting.
Yeah, I've done the makeup. Yeah,
it's looking $1 million.
I need to do a bit more with bags under the eyes, I reckon, but that's another story.
Don't we all? If you're talking about bags under the eyes, I've had one of those sort of days where we're meant to have Noah Skoko all the way from Europe. Unfortunately, last minute, club put a stop to it and said, no, we're not going to allow it. It can only go through in-house media channels. And then Simon Wrench, who was going to talk about the country championships, fell ill at the last moment. So
yes, I've been subbed in.
Subbed in, super sub, Mike. Thanks for honestly, all jokes aside, thank you for coming on the show. And a little bit later on, we're also going to have another super sub, EMILY SUTCLIFFE, who's the coach of the under-12s. But speaking of Emily, she was also one of the keynote speakers at yesterday's presentation.
Yep.
Tell us a little bit more about the presentation. We've got a slide there of the packed auditorium there at the Katsumata Centre.
Yeah, look, it was a fantastic turnout, Tonchi. If there's anybody watching who was there, thank you for coming along. It was brilliant because, as you know, I mean, we've got this is a big championship. I think you're very familiar with it, but if there's anybody watching that's not as familiar with it, it's kids that come together from Ballarat, Bendigo, Albury-Wodonga, Gippsland, Latrobe Valley, Mildura, Shepparton, Warrnambool, and last but not least, of course, Geelong. Now, last year we hosted the championship here in Geelong. Some of you might remember, and this year it's up in Ballarat. And maybe there's some people on the call that's going to go, and it's a really big deal for the kids because and particularly a big shout out to Simon Wrench and all the coaches that have really helped do all the trials and so on. And I said this last night because I was the MC last night at that lovely hall. And I think it's going to be a bigger champ. Well, it is going to be, what I'm told, the latest figures in last year when we hosted in Geelong, we had something like 1,000 competitors that took part. It looks as though in Ballarat, from what I've seen, the latest numbers, it's probably going to be closer to 1,400. So that's fantastic. That's a big growth in the game. And equally, this year, Geelong actually is going to be the highest represented region. We've done really well. We've got 12 teams that are going this year. So that's 180 kids that are playing out of the 400 plus that's travelled. And one of the good news about it is that 60 of the 180 players are girls, so it's really great to see the female game, particularly now the World Cup this year. So that's about a third of the players going along are young women and girls, and I sort of rallied up the boys last night saying they're coming. You better giddy up. Yeah. So it's really good to see that, and that was the main thing. And then we had some guest speakers last night. Steve Horvat did a great job last night. You can see some of the coaches and players that you've pulled up on the screen there.
As we speak, Mike, we'll go through all the slides. A big shout out to Pete Bradley, who's also one of the coaches. I think he coaches the under-12 boys. He sent these through, and as we're talking, we'll just put these slides up in the background, so you'll be able to see the names and coaches and some of the sponsors as well. So sorry, carry on, Mike.
No, that's fine. You keep going. So as I said, what you'll detail there is is all the teams that we've got. As I say, we've got 12 this season. 25 coaches, and they're all named there. And also from a coaching point of view, it's great. We've actually got 4 women coaches this year. We never had any last year.
That? Yeah.
So that's brilliant. So it's really encouraging to see the growth in the game. And Emily hopefully comes on later. She did a great job last night talking through, her journey in football and soccer from back in her days in Wales, where she coached with Cardiff and then with Wrexham. So she'll talk about that a little bit later. But more inspiring, I guess, was just to encourage all the kids, but in particular the young women, to really step up. And she made an interesting comment. In fact, I won't talk about it because I might steal a thunder for later. So I'll leave that one. Yeah. So she did a great job. And then Steve Horvat, as I mentioned, came down. He did this last year as well. And, Steve is great at talking to both the families and the young kids in terms of what they can aspire to do. And he reminded the kids, as he did last year, he says, you never know who's watching. This is a representative squad. And I talked about how in Geelong, we've got 5,500 players that play football this is the numbers from last year. And I think it's going to be roughly similar this year. About 2,000 of those players actually play in the Metro Comp and about 3,500 play in community. So what I said to the kids last night, if we've got 180 players that are the rep squads for Geelong, that's 180 out of 3,500. This is the top 5% of kids who play the community game. This is the best 5%, if you like. And it's really great that they are recognised for that. And Joey Didalitsa came along as well. And again, was very valuable his time talking to the kids. And he talked about his journey when he was a young kid, growing up. And he made a comment which was interesting, which there wasn't anything like the country championships when he was growing up locally. So he said it's really great that there is this opportunity for the kids can go and play Metro and play Premier League and so on, and that's fantastic. But then for the community sport to also get some recognition was really good, and a big thanks to Steve and to Joey and to Emily and all the coaches for the contribution last night.
Looking at some of the coaches there, it's got some very, very high caliber coaches, and it's also great to see, as you said, a lot of female coaches, a lot more female coaches than we've had in the past. And one of those female coaches, in my opinion, she's the highest profile female coach in the region, and that's saying quite a fair bit. But she's a full-time coach, and it's great to see EMILY SUTCLIFFE involved in it this year. We've got Emily joining us. Thank you very much, Emily, for joining us. Another one of the super subs coming on at the last minute, so really, really appreciate it. Welcome to the Game of Two Halves podcast.
Hi, Tonji. How you doing? Thanks for having me on.
Yeah, very good, Emily. First of all, let's talk about last night. From all accounts, it looks like it was an absolutely fantastic evening. And you were, as Mike said, one of the three keynote speakers. Tell us about your impressions of last night.
Yeah, great evening. It's actually the first time I've been part of the Country Champs, and seeing it last night and seeing the amount of people there and families getting around it, and also the talent that we've had coming through as well, being part of the selection process and then working with our under-12 girls is really amazing. So we've actually just played a practice match down at Geelong Soccer Club against the Metro girls, and we drew 3-3. So just kind of shows where we're at as a region and what brilliant talent we've got coming through our community teams.
Now, that's the under-12 team, and we noticed that Craig Wright's there as well. He's one of the coaches, and he's also the Surfside president. How good is it that, there's presidents of clubs now getting involved in female football and not only just being involved as administrators at their clubs, but they're also coaches as well. But take us through some of the here's a chance to mention some of the girls that are in that team, the under-12 girls rep team that you and Craig are looking after.
Yeah, definitely. Well, Craig's doing a great job as well, down in Surfside, and he was saying how much he's got going on as well of his own job and things as well. So it was really good to have him involved. But some of the standout girls there we've had Indy in goals. She was fantastic tonight and has been through training. We've got Lillian Harris took the captain's armband, and we've got Summer Wright as the vice captain. So those guys have been really, really good. And Zoe has actually come up from the under-11s. She came into our under-12s and she ended up actually scoring a hat-trick tonight. So she's definitely one to watch out for from the Geelong region. But all the girls involved, they're just such great girls. It's a really great group, and we're really lucky to be involved. I can't wait to see what happens this weekend.
Yeah, Mike. With one thing that we really ought to mention, and we saw that on that slide there, Geelong Port, the sponsors. Without the sponsors, this would be really, really difficult. And Geelong Port again have come on board to sponsor all the female teams, and that's a huge, huge coup for football in Geelong, isn't it?
Yeah, it is. And sorry, I've just dropped my microphone. And,
in the excitement.
In the excitement, yeah. And look, if we can keep Geelong Port and other large organisations like the TAC, and obviously Football Victoria put some money in as well. But each year, I think we're getting better and better at raising sponsorship. So what that's meant is that we've actually managed this year to subsidise all the kids that are going from what the normal pricing would be. Last year, we didn't quite cover everybody, but this year we did. And some sponsors have come in and sponsored specific teams, and others have just made the money available for the whole comp. So we've had a lot of, if you like, second tier or smaller sponsors, and I made sure that they were on that slide so that people could see it, because we changed equipment supplier to Macron this year from Lydia, and that's not anything against Lydia, it's just the way it worked out. And a lot of other local organisations have put some money in to support it. So it's great to see people, supporting communities, in our case soccer, but community sport in general.
Yeah. And Giacomo Carulli, a big shout out to him from Macron, who's, I think he's over in Italy at the moment. Everyone seems to be overseas at the moment. We just had JOSIP ZILIC coming to us live from Istanbul, Turkey. We've heard about Rod van der Scheijs and Mick Opperman, who are on their way to Turkey. So everyone seems to be heading to Europe. But one of the things that we talked about with JOSIP prior in the global game was just the stepping stone that our game can provide people. And Emily, soccer for you, well, obviously you're a Welsh girl, proud Welsh girl, judging by that little flag in the background there. But for you, football has taken you to the other side of the world. And yesterday, in your speech yesterday, you mentioned how it's been a big part of your journey as well, just the developing as a person as well. What have been some of the amazing opportunities that football has opened the door for you?
Oh yeah, it's been massive. Like I said yesterday, it's been in my DNA since I was really young. You know, my dad and my brothers are really big on football. So I've always grown up playing, and like I said, a short story about it was being one of the only girls on a boys team growing up. We didn't really have the girls only options. So as we started going through the age groups, we started getting more girls only opportunities come available as I was in my teenage years. And Wrexham, who again has risen in the profile recently.
Yes,
Thank
they have.
you to the two Hollywood actors that have taken it over. But they actually started the first ever girls only academy, which we started getting selected from, which is similar to what we're doing here, where the girls from local community clubs all come together to train, but this was on a more regular basis than just the one competition. So that really opened doors to us playing against academies like Man City and Bolton, and we were playing up in the Northwest. So that's where I started getting access to, professional coaches and B licensed, A licensed coaches, and really started more doors opening into kind of like representing North Wales, then coming into the Welsh junior squads and all that. But it's not over there. It's a very small percent actually make it. So I had to kind of hit a few of those barriers where you've got to get over not getting selected. And I kind of went into coaching at a really young age because we had a local academy that had opened through an ex-Aston Villa goalkeeper and a Liverpool academy coach came together to do like the holiday programs and Saturday morning sessions. So started volunteering there and get my coaching badges, and that's when a load more doors started opening for me because I realised, well, if I'm not going all the way with my playing, there's different opportunities here. And I just thought I'd always wanted to go travelling after I got my degree in education and sports in Cardiff, and I'd got a bit of more experience with Cardiff City. I was like, well, what's stopping me from going abroad and getting some experience there? So I made the plunge to go overseas, and it was one of those where I was just one backpack on my back and just see what happens. And here I am, 6 years later with a full-time coaching role, when really the odds were against female coaches to get into full-time coaching. So it's really led me to meet some amazing people and get loads of experience. And even last night, if I would have told myself when I was 15, 16 that I would have been stood in front of all those people last night sharing my story, then I would have been laughed at. So it's really good, and the amazing people that you've met in Geelong and the community that we've got here and the potential for women's football in the next few months is going to be absolutely huge. So we just got to grasp it.
Now, speaking of the potential, last night you did, and as a full-time coach, one of, I guess there's not that many, but there are a few here in Geelong making a living out of football coaching, which is phenomenal. And probably 5-6 years ago, you would have thought, it wouldn't be possible to do so. But you said your mission is clear: to create more opportunities for girls and boys starting as young as 5 years old, and grow the beautiful game in our region. Now, you've been involved in Football Stars Academy over the last 4 years or something in this region. And in that time, you've seen the amazing growth and the opportunities. And you said yourself, it's an exciting time for women's football. Speaking of women's football, later this year in a few months' time, we've got the Women's World Cup happening here. And it's a question I ask everyone: are we ready to are we ready to capitalise on the opportunities that this massive event is going to present us?
Yeah, it's a difficult one. I've had a few conversations with people about this because when I was back in the UK just after Christmas, I was still seeing the legacy that the Euros is having across the whole of the UK, not only England, from them obviously taking the trophy, and it's absolutely huge. The money they're pumping in to not only clubs but schools. And all these different foundations that are coming in and facilities getting built, and it's just absolutely crazy. So I think for us, it's got to be a collective push from clubs and schools, and the government need to start putting money into, initiatives within the schools as well. And all the coaches around the regions and everything needs to come together and just really push. And I think as long as we're providing opportunities, like we said, from 5 years old, there's no reason why they shouldn't have access to professional coaching. And again, we're providing opportunities here for community girls to come up, and then you've got your Metro and your NPL, and everyone's got to be looked after at different levels and make sure they're enjoying the game. And complete beginners, like the surge I've seen recently, we obviously provide our SAP sessions at schools, which are open to beginners, and more girls are ringing up and wanting to come and trial and give it a go. And it's just, we need everyone working together at once to make sure that we really are making the most of it and making the most of this massive event that Australia have got the pleasure of hosting.
Yeah, now in recent seasons, you've also been a mainstay of the Geelong Galaxy midfield. This year, you've moved to Boroondara Kerry Eagles along with Christy Merry, your ex-teammate at Galaxy. Now she's your teammate at Boroondara. Doing very well in the NPLW competition. We'll take a look at the ladder there. On top at the moment, although it was a bit of a stumble on the weekend against Bulleen Lions. But this year, slightly expanded competition. We were talking to Bobby Zdravkovsky from Box Hill United on last night's Football Out West show, the sister program of the Game of Two Halves. But he was saying how exciting and how the three extra teams this year have really made it such an exciting competition, higher quality competition as well. What's been your impression of the NPLW competition this year?
Yeah, I think obviously I've only seen bits of it in previous years. When I first moved to Geelong, I was actually going to move to Geelong Galaxy halfway through my first season, but there was only 6 games left, and I had my loyalty lay with Geelong Soccer Club at that time to win the division. So I saw a bit to the NPL then, and the caliber of players that were coming on. But I think since COVID and more people are traveling, the amount of visa players that are involved as well, and W League players, like we played against Bulleen on Saturday night, and it's a really high level competition, which is you never know what's going to happen in each game, and we've been really fortunate to capitalize on our first round of the season, and really for us it's just about maintaining the consistency now. Like you said, it changes the competition completely when the W League players start coming in. So yeah, it's going to be a big test now to see can we consistently stay at the top. But it's Boroondara doing a great job as a new club that have just been promoted. It's the atmosphere and the culture at the club is so positive. I've never seen a culture like that at a top club. With all those players, sometimes you can get big personalities coming in and individuals playing, but it is really a team effort. So it's really nice to see where we're at, and the level of competition is brilliant to play in as well.
Yeah, and the Geelong Galaxy, speaking of some good imports as well, they are doing really well. And a 9-0 win on the weekend, that was absolutely fantastic
to see. Really good.
It's great. And look, I guess when we take into account the State League State League 1 competition with 3 Geelong teams now, I think there's more interest in that State League 1 competition than I think some of the men's competitions, especially some of the teams doing not so well. But that's a real boost for girls here in Geelong now, because there's a real pathway, whether it be at the upper elite level, the middle elite level, or even just the community level. But now there's a real opportunity for girls to be able to play from under 5s all the way through to senior level, isn't it?
Yeah, and that's what we need. We need pathways the whole way through. Yeah. And there's only going to be so many spots available in the State League 1 or the NPL or the VPLW. So it's about supporting all players, whether they don't get into that 16 and then they've still got a high level to play at. And I hope that, in the next few years, I'm not having to travel 3 hours for a 4-hour round trip just to play at NPL level. And hopefully, we can work as a region again. If we can get a club that's acting like the centre of excellence for girls to be pushed up to, and that's the top of your tier, then we're moving in the right direction. So fingers crossed and good luck to all the teams. It's great to see the local community all battling it out at state leagues, and Galaxy doing well in the VPLW. So I'm hoping that in 5 years' time there is a clear pathway for all girls if they want to play a social level with friends, or if they want to really give it a go and look in young Matildas, or looking to be the next Sam Kerr, that they've got that pathway and they can see it and live it.
Absolutely fantastic. Mike, as chairperson or chairman of the Geelong Region Football Committee, I guess the overseeing body of the country championships, have you got any last words for the players, the coaches, the parents of the country rep players and the country rep teams ahead of this weekend's big tournament up in Ballarat?
Yeah, one of the things that we reminded, I guess, everybody who was going up, both players and parents, is that by definition it's a representative group of teams, and therefore in that sense you are representing Geelong. So we talked about also culture and standards of behaviour, and we all get, passionate about the game, and sometimes you have a crack at the ref and all of that sort of stuff. But we just reminded both players and family members on the sideline to be respectful of umpires, referees, call them what you will, linesmen, and each other, because at the end of the day, we want to be competitive in Geelong. We want to go and have a crack at winning, but it's not all about just the winning. We actually want the kids to have a really enjoyable experience, and that can get rubbed off if someone loses the head a little bit. So that's the only other message that we particularly talked about last night. The kind of "We Are Geelong" type message was something that we've reinforced.
Awesome. To both of you, thank you once again for coming off the substitutes bench very, very last minute. It certainly paid off dividends in a big way for our viewers, and we thank you both for being on tonight's show, and wishing you all the best, not just for the weekend, but for the rest of the season, and certainly down the track as well.
And just before I came on, Tonchi, I saw that there seems to be an agreement that Ange is probably going to leave Celtic. It looks as though he's definitely going to Spurs.
Oh, there you go. You're a proud Glasgow Celtic man. The treble, and he's going to. Well, we talk about pathways. We talk about opportunities and stepping stones. It doesn't just happen at the local area. It certainly happens at the very, very highest of professional levels, and that's a good example. So
yeah, he's got to take that opportunity. I mean, that doesn't come along, easily, and he's done a great job in his career so far. But to be, a club manager in the Champions League, in the Premiership, and then hopefully go on to the Champions League, who knows? Yeah. Good on him. He's got to grab that.
Brilliant. Well, Mike, congratulations on everything that Celtic have achieved this year. And congratulations, Emily, on Wrexham. Everything that Wrexham have achieved this year, a real fairy tale story. Thanks, folks. Good night, and thank you for being with us.
Thanks, guys.
Please don't go away. We'll be back very, very shortly.
Mist Air Conditioning and Mechanical Services is one of Geelong's premier domestic air conditioning companies. The company is a venture by the directors of a major commercial mechanical services company which has over 45 years combined experience in the air conditioning sector all over Australia. Our service and vast industry connections will ensure that Mist AC will not only be competitive in price, it will also get you, the client, ongoing service needs for your home or office. With a 7-year guarantee on all our workmanship, you can rest assured you will never be left out in the cold. Whether you are renovating or building your new family home, Mist can provide all types of ducted, split or reverse cycle air conditioning for your environment. We offer a total solution suitable to your family's needs. To find out more, visit our website at www.misthc.com.au or email us at info@misthc.com.au or call us now on 5278 6478. And that, folks, brings us to the end of tonight's program, episode 108 of the Game of Two Halves podcast, powered by the Geelong Region Soccer Show and proudly sponsored by Euro Football Star. Before we leave, become a member of the Game of Two Halves podcast and receive the exclusive Geelong Weekly Football News Bulletin every Friday. Lots of news stories exclusively to your inbox about the local region. Sign up now for as little as just $5 per month, and you can do so. There's the website at the bottom of your screen, www.patreon.com/Geelong
Region Soccer Show. Big thanks to our guest tonight, stepping in at the last minute, JOSIP ZILIC, all the way from Istanbul, Turkey, to MIKE McKINSTRY, the chairman of the Geelong Region Football Committee and the coach of the Geelong Girls Country Championships under-12 rep team, and she's also a full-time coach with Football Stars Academy here in Geelong, EMILY SUTCLIFFE. Folks, we hope you've enjoyed tonight's show. We look forward to your company again next Monday night at 8 p.m. Until then, have a great week ahead and an even better long weekend next weekend. Good night.